Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Zach and Max Show. But wait a second, you're not. Are you new Zach?
No, new Mac,
What?
new Mac, old Mac.
You know what this is? This is like a weird episode of Lady Hawk. There's an eclipse, and now there's two Macs. So double the Mac pleasure, double the fun. We want to welcome Matt Rauscher, just a fantastic writer, a person who has done various elements of game design. He is a GM to friends, family, celebrities, you name it, all around nice guy. And I like to consider a very close friend. Matt,
Indeed.
welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. It's very nice of you. Very kind of you.
So, Matt, can you tell our viewers how did you get started yourself in the hobby?
Oh, I think that's like the first question that a lot of people ask, because everyone's got their own little origin story. But my brother, I think it was like 1979. My brother would come home and he'd have his books, his first, and we never played basic. He went straight into advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So it was, the Freedy holding the lady on the cover of the DMG, and the Tramp cover of the Player's Handbook, But he would come home and he would tell me these stories, and of course I'd be like, yeah, when can I play? And he'd be like, those are my friends, like.
Oh.
But my brother, being the guy he is, he's always included me in practically everything. It might take some convincing, but he's always included his little brother in everything that he did through the years to this day. But I started playing with him. So my first character, I was looking through the book. I like, assassin. That's who I want to be. So my first character was an assassin, not knowing anything about alignment or and I remember I had read a Choose Your Own Adventure book, and there's a little preface to that, because it probably took me 6 months to read that book, but because I had a lot of learning disabilities when I was young. I struggled with dyslexia and a few other things, and 1979, 1980, and there weren't a lot of programs or understanding of, how to help somebody. It was just always, well, you're kind of the dumb kid, so, But I really wanted to play this game, and my brother was like, well, if you have to be able to read this, because he's big on, even with his own kids, he's big on, go figure it out. He doesn't believe in hand holding in any sort of way. And I really wanted to play. So, and my parents actually took notice. And so I got lucky. I found my parents realized they were kind of ahead of their time, I think, because at that time, everyone was freaking out over Dungeons and Dragons and steam tunnels and stuff. But they were like, oh, he's actually trying to read that, and so they were like, well, we'll buy you whatever you want as long as you read it. And so, and I got lucky. I did find a teacher that helped me with the dyslexia and stuff, but I did a ton of reading only because I really wanted to play this game. I wanted to show my brother I could do it. And so that's kind of where I got my start. It was just stubbornness that helped me. But I mean, it helped me because, like, I remember my mom got mad because I don't remember who it was. It was a administrator at a school somewhere saying, hey, find him a trade because he'll never go to college, and I have a master's degree now, by the way. So,
right.
What go to hell, guy. But it was really, I told Luke Gygax, when a few years ago, I was like, I kind of feel like there's like a debt that I owe to the genre, because if I hadn't found gaming as something that was something I sink my teeth into, that would give me the motivation to overcome, difficulty reading or difficulty, because dyslexia also extends to you can flip flop numbers, letters, anything. So I told him, I really feel like I owe a debt to the originators of the game, because who knows what I'd be doing today if I hadn't, had that. So I ended up with a horde of D&D stuff thanks to Mom.
So we got your origin story, but what about getting into game design and that sort of aspect of gaming for you? How did that all come about?
That was my wife. When we got together, I had already been running games. I started DMing in the 80s. And at that point, it was from about the launch of second edition to now, I was pretty much just the forever DM. I was in the 80s with first edition. I had one character in one long-running campaign, and then I was the DM in another campaign. But that was really the 80s was the last time I was really got to play in any kind of duration. My wife, when we got together, I had these gaming groups that I had been gaming already for 20, 30 years with some of these folks. And she kept hearing all these stories. Oh, do you remember when this happened? Or do you remember when we stormed the keep and, we got in a fight over the treasure and we killed each other, or whatever, all these old gaming stories that she's like, you need to be writing those down. And so she's like, well, you have decades of adventures in your brain. Just start, putting them onto paper. And so that's kind of where it started, was with her, insisting that I start, I guess, she's like, hobbies are great, but if you can make a few dollars at the same time, they're even better. So
she is a wise woman.
Yes. So that's where it really got its start, was with her. And of course, the open gaming license for 5th edition, the way it's structured, it's easy entry into game design, adventure design. And so I think I just released, well, I guess, 6th or 7th adventure last year.
That's awesome.
Last adventure I wrote, I really wanted to create kind of a parallel civilization, and I tried to mirror the Mesoamerican cultures in the adventure. And there was ziggurats in the adventure, and printable scenery. Actually, you can, if you have a 3D printer, you can actually build the ziggurats.
Oh.
But as you peel away layers of the ziggurat that you can 3D print, you can actually see like the layers, the walls and the rooms, and so it all comes apart, the ziggurat.
Oh, okay.
That's awesome.
And it's big. The base of it's probably 2.5 feet across, and then
Jesus,
the next
huge, man.
So it's really big. The whole thing started, the whole adventure started, aside from my interest in the Mesoamerican cultures, the whole thing started because I thought, wouldn't it be cool to build a vertical dungeon, where, like, instead of, or like stairs going down and just the flat dungeon levels, like it literally is like the tunnels are going vertically to each level, and so you had to carefully climb down, and you're dropping into through ceilings of rooms rather than going in the side. And but in any case, the prison of cost. I got way off on a tangent. Right? Prison of cost. Funny story. I got really interested in Nuatl, which was I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, but there are all the different languages from Mesoamerica, and I started researching the languages, and I found this word "kas," and in one of those Mesoamerican languages, it meant evil. So I thought, wow, and it even like that hard K sound, "kas," and it's like K apostrophe AAS. It just looks cool, and I was like, man, that is so amazing. Perfect name for an adventure. I always do my due diligence though. Like whenever I think of like a cool idea, I do some Googling. I use the Google machine. I try to make sure that nobody else has done it. I don't want to step on any toes. And I found out, I think it's in Dutch, "Kaas" means cheese.
The prisoner of cheese.
I was like, oh well, I'm going with it because I like it anyway. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun when I realized that I had this battle within me because I was so dead set on it, and I finally said, you know what, my Dutch customers will have a good laugh. So
I'm just gonna let you know, it still strikes fear in me because I'm lactose intolerant, and
there you go.
would do a number on me. So there you go. I am fearful already.
Or you could turn it into a cheese sandwich and throw it at some NPCs and blind them.
Sometimes when your dice are hot, they're hot. We had a game, and we found some like food stores, right? And my character is kind of like this like charlatan with like a heart of gold thing, right? So he's going through all these food stores, and apparently he finds some cheese and some like bread. So he makes himself a sandwich, and they like open a door, and like these guys come and like, hey, what are you doing with our food? And I'm like, I'm gonna throw my sandwich in their face to blind them. And the DM was like, okay, go ahead and roll. Nat 20. She's like, so you pierced him in the eye with a cheese sandwich. How do I describe this? I was like, let's go with it. But no, Will also, I've known Will for a couple of years now, and one of my favorite things about Will is that he much like yourself, Matt, he tells such great stories because he really invests himself into like the characters' names and the lore, and he, the one of the really big things that I really love about your stories, Will, is it's almost like a good version of Hemingway, because like Hemingway would describe all these things in like intricate details, but I don't want to know about a rock on the side of the road that the dude's marching past. I don't want to. But he would talk about like, the wind blowing in someone's hair and just stuff like that. And it gave me that like cinematic feel in my brain, right? And it's very much like you when you describe your stories to me. Like when we went to dinner that time, I just love how you guys can come up with these like descriptive ways to like play with my brain, and you only get that in role-playing games, man. Yeah. You only get that in role-playing games. So Matt, do you have any like super fond memories of your gaming experience? Like, is there anything big that you're like, man, this was an experience that I've been able to take part of, and could you let our audience know a little bit about that and how it felt for you?
Well, I guess, boy, there's a bunch. I would probably be remiss if I didn't talk about going to LA and hanging out with Joe Manganiello at his house and playing in his old.
You survived a headlock from him, so congratulations.
Getting body slammed. That was a lot of fun. I got Luke Gygax was there, and Joe, and
that's awesome.
All of his pals, and they actually helped play test an adventure. What's funny though is that they don't know it, but I went a completely 100% different direction with the adventure that they play tested. So they're all like, when's it coming out? When's it coming out? And it's going to be completely unrecognizable to them once it does come out. But
excellent. Oh, that'd be so great.
I would say another extremely fond memory was back. Actually, this would be back in the '80s when I was actually playing. The Unearthed Arcana had just come out,
Oh,
and
yeah, I remember that book.
my first character in that campaign was the barbarian, out of that book, and he. I made him chaotic good. I don't like playing evil games or playing evil characters. But my friend, it turned into such a cutthroat campaign, and I just posted about it on Instagram. This guy, one of my best friends, he was playing an assassin, which we were talking about earlier, and his name was Blackthorn Backstabber, and for some reason he would still like convince people to trust him. Like I was just like, I just couldn't believe that all the time. But in any case, he slapped a helm of opposite alignment on my character. So I was suddenly this evil barbarian, and we had just found this artifact, and our group they were just so mercenary and cutthroat. They did no research on the wand. It was a wand, and we simply called it the Amazu wand because Amazu was the command word to activate it, and it made a 60-foot cone that had the same effect as a sphere of annihilation.
Oh, damn!
And so everyone wanted it. It only had 3 charges, and we blew one of them. We were like holding the wand, and one of the players was holding the wand. He goes, "What's the command word again?" And someone had said Amazu, and he goes, "Amazu," and the DM said, "Oh, it goes off," because he was holding the wand, and he said the command word. So he blew out the top of this tower, came crashing down on top of us, and for the rest of the campaign, it was literally like Game of Thrones style. Who could steal the wand and murder the most player characters and try to take over the kingdom and rule it for themselves? Just hold everyone hostage with this wand that can annihilate everything. It was like, the nuclear codes. And and the funny thing is when the campaign ended after like 3 or 4 years, it still had 1 charge left on it. So the only other charge that was used was when 2 players got in an argument at the table. And one of them had the Amazu wand, and the player like motioned, like I pointed right at him. I actually touched the tip of his nose, and the player sitting across from him goes, "You wouldn't dare!" And he goes, "Amazu!"
Oh no! Oh, no! A 60-foot cone to the face.
So his character was obliterated, and but I mean, we had that whole campaign was just, like I said, Game of Thrones. It was just murdering each other. We had side sessions after side sessions to try to, what are you doing to this person, or what horrible dastardly thing are you doing to this person, And so it was just a complete disaster for like 3 or 4 years. So it's kind of a funny memory to me, although, and the reason honestly, the reason it is such a fond memory is because there were no like friendships ended or people who got mad. Like when the game was over, it was just like, oh, that was hilarious, and it was, it was, everyone was able to leave all of that baggage at the table and walk away, and then go play, Bottle Rocket Wars or whatever we were doing in those days to each other. So that's mostly the reason why it's so fond. So
that's
there you
awesome.
go.
One other question about your characters and the DMing. So you mentioned your first character. Whatever happened to them? How far did they get? Did they become epic?
The barbarian,
that's a good question.
The barbarian got to 8th level. I still have him in a box right here in front of me. In fact,
cool.
I have all
that
of
is
those
really
characters.
cool.
So, like, one of the things that we always did, and I don't think a lot of people do this anymore, especially with like online, form fillable sheets and PDFs and stuff, but we kept all of the characters, all the resources in a single folder. at my house because we played at my house.
Mhm.
And so there was never I lost my character or I forgot my character. Everything was always kept together. And so when that campaign ended, I still have it all in a box right here. But that barbarian got to 8th level, and which if you know anything about first edition barbarians, that might as well be epic levels because to get to 2nd level for barbarian, you needed 6,000 experience, and it just got worse from there.
Yeah.
I think he had 300,000 or 400,000 experience points, and he was 8th level. So, I mean, yeah, it was tough going. But the barbarian in the Art of Arcana could do crazy things. Like once in their life, they could call down the great heathen army on somebody, and 100,000 barbarians come rolling through. But they can only do it once. Silly things like that. But and that's the funny thing about. That's another funny story. I got to tell this story. So one of the things about barbarians in first edition was that they were superstitious to the core, and you had to gain levels, like 4 or 5 levels, before you could even be allowed to use a magic item.
Right.
But the trade-off was, because in those days, if you acquired a magic item and you're like, your character actually won the magic item, got to keep the magic item, they got experience for the magic item. Well, the barbarian, if they destroyed a magic item, would get experience for it. So we went through White Plume Mountain, and not a single one of the other players really connected those dots, because I was like, man, if I could break, wave, or whelm, that'd be like 10,000 experience points because they're an artifact. And granted, you're not supposed to be able to just like break an artifact. But because my DM was kind of a jerk and he thought it'd be hilarious, we got through White Plume Mountain. One of the characters actually fell into the bubbling, boiling lava and survived. And the DM ruled that he was horribly disfigured and terribly ugly, Quasimodo ugly, and so everyone was like, "Well, at least we have these artifacts." And they turn around, and I'm like, "Snap!" And so that was the one time where I thought I was going to be disowned out of the friendship circle. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. You spoke earlier about how you used your desire and want to play the games with your brother to help focus you to be able to learn to work with your learning disabilities. We know how gaming has affected your life, but for someone else who may have a learning disability, or someone else who has I guess a difficult time digesting all the text that is involved in our hobby, what advice do you have to them to help them enjoy this hobby more and not be discouraged because it is such a vast amount to read?
Well, for me, I started by just zeroing in or focusing on the one thing that I was really excited about, and that was playing an assassin. My first character ever was an assassin. And so I spent a lot of time, and it took me forever to really digest just that one section. I think it was like 2 or 3 pages about the assassin. And I'm not saying like a week, I'm talking like a month for me to really not just read it, but comprehend it. And there might be someone out there who's maybe not quite that bad, or maybe someone who's worse. But I would say, assuming that this person's already in a group and already has a DM, they could. I would lean on somebody, one of their friends, or the DM in particular, and really talk through the character. Now, for my part, I didn't really have that, mostly because my brother's just like, you got to do it on your own. You got to do it on your own. But I think in today's day, there's so much out there now that whether it's, being able to lean on a friend for help, but there are probably 1,000 videos on 5e fighters out there. And there's probably 10,000 videos on playing a rogue. And, there's so many resources that are available today that can really help. But I would encourage them to try to read it if you're struggling with reading it, because it's just going to make you a stronger reader. But the great thing about today's day and age is if you're really struggling with education or struggling for that acceptance, there are so many resources. I know when I went out to Los Angeles, there was a girl that wanted a game so bad, but she had such bad anxiety, and she reached out to me on Instagram, and we set up a game just for her. But in the weeks leading up, I got onto Google Hangouts and we talked about her character, what her character can do, and she didn't want to look stupid, and I totally get that. You don't. She wanted to go in there and know exactly what everyone. She wanted to know the inside jokes. She wanted to know that the inside jokes weren't about her, And I guess you kind of have to have anxiety to understand it, because even like for me, I was like, no one's gonna make fun of you, and she's like, you don't understand. And so I just had to accept that, right? Mm-hmm. And so we not only talked about her character, but she's like, so when you guys tell jokes, what sorts of things do you joke about? And so then I'm like, well, for me, because I'm old and you're like 20, it would be like Monty Python things, and talking about, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, or, and talking, and like, it was interesting to me, like to me, like, I just don't care what other people think about me. It's like they can think whatever they want. And so I am so detached from her form of anxiety. She's like on the opposite end of that spectrum, we're very sensitive. But we had an awesome time when we actually played the game. And she was like way invested in her character. She knew exactly what spells she wanted to use. She knew exactly what they were due. She was like 200% prepared. It was a great experience, and she was relaxed. It probably took her 2 hours to get relaxed, but once she realized that it was all going to be cool, then she was able to let her guard down, and everyone was cool. And granted, there were some strangers at the table that she didn't know, and so maybe that's part of it. But it's not just learning disabilities. I think something like social anxiety can make a person miss out on a lot of joy out of life, and you don't want that. And it could be autism or Asperger's, which is, my son has Asperger's, and so it's I'm sorry, folks out there, I get off on tangents very easily. So
it's fine.
So anyway, so I would say, if you have a circle of friends, lean on them, go on the internet. But I mean, there's always, like, if you're me and you want to talk about gaming, I get strangers on Instagram who hit me up all the time, and they're just like, hey, what do you think of Knowles as a bad guy? And we'll talk for 2 hours about, and I don't know this person because I'm just like some guy who likes to talk about gaming any day of the week. So, just reach out to folks, and, I think that that's one of the great parts about RPGs is the people that in general, the people who play them want to be social, and that's why they play them. And so there should be no hesitation for you to want to reach out to someone and just pick their brain. So
no, that's awesome.
A really long way around answering that question.
No, that's awesome, dude. That's awesome.
You've mentioned that you've put out some different adventures and stuff like that. Where can our listeners find them?
I've got the Days of Blight series, which is the one that actually started back in the 80s. And I'm getting ready to publish the third and final chapters if we can get through the playtesting. Thank you, pandemic. That one is on the DM's Guild. I also have, when I wrote the first Days of Blight, writing for me, I do a lot of writing now. I write a lot of short stories and stuff, and but it helps me get my brain in the right place. It's therapeutic for me, right? Well, the Days of Blight series is a horror adventure, and when I finished writing it, my mind was not in a good place because it was horror to me, and to me it was just like, so I wrote, and I have this as a free download on the DM's Guild, but it's called the Misfit Maggot 5, and you play monstrous humanoids, and it's a comedy adventure, and that was the whole point of it, and it's been downloaded thousands of times, but everyone that had bought it, and it's funny because I had so much fun writing it. It really pulled me out of that funk when that writing the horror adventures had put me in. But I love that. I love some of the reviews that we got for it. This one lady, she's like, I've downloaded it and I've read it like 5 times because it's just funny to read. And so I encourage you, it's free, Misfit Maggot 5. So that's on the DM's Guild. And then I have some stuff on, what is that, Drive Through RPG, and then some stuff on Amazon. So I think if you search the Pickled Dragon on those, it'll come up. But the Prison of Kos and the Evil Under Chlorhaven are on Drive Through RPG and Amazon. And then I co-authored a monster manual called The Monstrous Lexicon, and that's on Amazon and Drive Through RPG. And I co-authored that. I have to plug her because she's one of my best friends, Kelsey Dion with the Arcane Library. She is an amazing lady and a great author herself. But we took a year, we set aside a year, and we wrote this monster manual, and we had so much fun doing it. And it has like 70 new monsters in it. It's not huge, but we're very proud of the creations. We actually met up at GaryCon one year, and we were like, wouldn't it be great if we made a monster manual of joke monsters, like toilet mimics and booze oozes and stuff like that. And then when we actually sat down to do it, we were like, oh, I really want to create real monsters. And she was like, I do too. And so that's where that came out of. But in any case, we're really proud of that one. And that one is available on a number of places, like I said, Amazon and Drive Through RPG. But Kelsey Dion, the Arcane Library, I sing her praises all the time. She's wonderful. So there you go.
Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your life and sitting here and talking to a bunch of geeks about things that we love. Thank you. I really hope the very, very best for you guys. I hope that you can get back to writing and publishing some more stuff. And I truly cannot wait for you and your wife and your kids to come down and let's get a barbecue going. I'm stoked, man. Awesome. Well, Matt Rauscher, once again, thank you for being on the Zach and Mac show with New Mac and Old Mac.
All right.
We appreciate it, and we will talk to you soon.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right, man.